Welcome to Cooking with the Gomez. Today we'll be turning to indigenous foods to learn about the health benefits of real green cooking. Indigenous people in Mexico and other Latin American countries use ground cornmeal for a variety of dishes, including corundas, tamales, and tortillas, of course, and even drinks. And they have an incredible amount of nutritional benefits, proteins, and other foods that keep energy very high. The Tarahumara Indians, for example, could run 50 to 100 miles a day, and they primarily ate white corn ground meal into nixtamal. Today we'll be using this ground meal to make gorditas de la villa. And gorditas de la villa are just kind of like a cookie. So join us for Cooking with the Gomez. We are making gorditas de la villa. And the name comes from La Villa, where the Virgin of Guadalupe has the basilica, and they sell these little white corn cookies, cakes outside of the church, so they're cakes from the Villa. But they're called a lot of other things. They're similar to tortillas, but they're kind of like a cookie. For these little Mexican gorditas de la Villa, you're going to need the following ingredients: 2 cups of pinole, or white corn flour that is made with maíz cacahuacintle, or white corn, 2 tablespoons of lard, 1 chunk of piloncillo. If you can't get piloncillo, which is basically unrefined cane sugar that's made into a cake, you can substitute that with 1/2 cup of sugar. 4 egg yolks, only the yolks, 1 teaspoon of tequesquite, which is another indigenous food, a spice actually, and that can be substituted with baking soda and salt. So it would be 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt and 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. Then you need 2 tablespoons of peanut butter and warm water. For your toppings, you can choose a variety of things. These cookies taste great by themselves, but you could add butter, which is my favorite, or Nutella, chocolate syrup, cajeta, which is a caramel made from goat's milk, dulce de leche, which is cooked sweetened condensed milk. You can use the sweetened condensed milk by itself, or honey, or jelly, or jam, or anything else you can think of. Now for the preparation. First, you're going to want to dissolve your tequesquite. If you can find tequesquite, and you can buy it online, you're going to get some impurities in it. They sell it in a variety of forms. You will want to dissolve that in some warm water, about 2 to 3 tablespoons of water, and then dissolve the 1 teaspoon of tequesquite in that water. You can stick that in the microwave and let it cook for 40-50 seconds, and then make sure that you drain it so that you can take out any impurities like little pieces of hay or rocks, which tend to be in tequesquite packets. Now, if you don't have tequesquite, you can also substitute that, like I said, for 1/4 tablespoon of salt and 3/4 tablespoons of baking soda. Tequesquite is actually comes from the Nahual, which is another name for the Aztecs or the Mexicas or the indigenous people of Mexico, of that area, and it's pronounced tequesquite. And it comes from the Nahual quisquitl, which means bubbling, and tetl, which means rock. So bubbling rock. And this was a foam and a rock that kind of mineralized around the lakes, the salt lakes of Mexico, like the Lake of Texcoco, which is near Mexico City. And this could be found, this foaming mineral could be found in the receding waters of these salt lakes. Now, this tequesquite in the indigenous times was used as the poor man's salt. Salt is a commodity, was something that only the affluent and the dignitaries could use, the emperors and all of his posse. So people often use tequesquite as salt because it contains salt. The tequesquite was traditionally used in all sorts of Mexican foods that everybody knows, like tamales and tortillas, but also was used to cook a variety of other vegetables, especially green vegetables, because it's a natural color preserver. So it keeps the vibrant greens of vegetables in the food without taking that away when you cook it. It also is a bean softener, so lentils, beans, would be cooked with tequesquite to make them soft. And it did the same thing for meat, so it was used as a meat tenderizer. It was also used as leavening by itself or in combination with cooking a tomatillo, green tomato skins, in water and mixing them with tequesquite, and it was a wonderful leavening for breads and cakes. Tequesquite can also be mixed with pulque to make vinegar. Pulque is the water that comes out of the maguey or the century plants that is fermented, and it's used in making cobalt blue and orange. It's also used to convert fat into soap, to fertilize plants, as a laxative for livestock. It's used to soften stains in laundry. It was used in metallurgy. Basically what it is a combination of sodium bicarbonate and sodium chloride. So it had so many applications in the indigenous times, and now it was even used for dental care, for washing dishes, and for absorbing bad odors. And it had many medicinal purposes as well. So you want to melt the tequesquite with some water, about 2 to 3 tablespoons of water, and then you want to strain out any impurities. So strain your tequesquite water for little rocks or pieces of hay. Then you'll take your melted tequesquite water and you're going to add your sugar, or if you found piloncillo, which is much better for you than sugar, you will want to take your piloncillo chunk and you will take a medium piece, about a cup of sugar's worth of piloncillo, and put it in that water. Feel free to add 2 or 3 more tablespoons of water on top and stick it into the microwave for about a minute at a time. Now you're going to take the piloncillo water out, pour it on top of your piloncillo as if you were basting your piloncillo, and this will keep melting the chunk of piloncillo down until it becomes a syrup. You'll have to do this several times, and you want to use a spoon so that you can mash the chunks of piloncillo and get them completely dissolved into your water. Feel free to add more water to get your consistency very syrupy and thick, almost like molasses. Piloncillo has many advantages over sugar. It's basically unrefined whole cane sugar that is created through a process of mashing the cane fruit, mixing it with water and boiling it at very high heat, and by a process of evaporation you're left with these big chunks of unrefined whole cane sugar called a variety of things. In Mexico it's called piloncillo. It's also used in Colombia, Ecuador, Guatemala, Panama, Peru, Venezuela, and Bolivia, and they called it panela, chancaca, papelón, panocha, rapadura. It's also used in Pakistan, India, and Sri Lanka, and it goes by the name of gru. In Laos, it goes by the name of namoy. So many countries use this product, and it's very healthy. Unlike refined white sugar, piloncillo contains impurities which happen to be good. Impurities sound bad, but in this case it's actually very good because we have proteins in those impurities, calcium, iron, absorbic acid, which is basically vitamin C, copper, magnesium, and small particles of fluorine and selenium. It's considered one of the most basic food sweeteners in Mexican cooking, and it's used in all sorts of wonderful Mexican foods, from atole to capirotada to champurrado and flan. That's a big favorite that everyone has probably heard of. Piloncillo also has many health benefits. In third world countries, it's frequently used for health and vitality of children. It's used to treat thrush. It's better for children than sugar because it prevents constipation, it prevents rickets, it prevents nutritional anemia, it prevents tooth decay. It's a natural energy replacement. But it also helps to purify the blood. People in indigenous times and Mexicans today use it for preventing rheumatic afflictions, preventing bile disorders. There are even modern studies that show that it helps heal lesions in the lungs due to dust or smoke inhalation. There's really an amazing sweetener that you don't have to feel guilty about using. Now you want to take your syrup of piloncillo or sugar and you want to mix in your peanut butter. Mix it in really well, and then you'll separate out 4 egg yolks and set those aside. Then you want to take your white corn flour or your pinole, if you found that, and you want to cut your lard into that white corn flour. Then you will be adding your piloncillo and peanut butter mixture and cut that in as well. Finally, you will whisk your egg yolks with water and mix that into your dough. Take your dough and mix it with a spoon or mix it by hand, and you want to have a consistency like cookie dough that you can roll into a little ball and pat into a little cookie. You don't want it to be very thick and you don't want it to be very wide. You want to take about 2 to 3 tablespoons of dough in your hand and make a cookie that's no more than 5 centimeters in diameter. You can keep adding warm water to this dough until it is the consistency that you need before you put it on the hot plate and start cooking. Pinole is, interestingly, really just this white corn flour that's toasted. So if you don't have pinole and you want to try this variation, which is a twist on the original recipe, you can just toast your white corn flour and you will have pinole. But the white corn flour is a very Mexican, very Aztec, same thing, very Nahuatl, also same thing. And a lot of indigenous people have been using pinole and white corn for centuries. The Tarahumara Indians of Mexico, for example, use pinole as a staple in drinks and in the meal that they use to make their tortillas and their food. And they run 50 to 100 miles at a time for fun. It is an incredible energy source. It is something that indigenous Mexicans figured out they could use to make a whole protein when they mix it with beans. Finally, you want to take this dough, make your little cakes, put them on your hot plate, turn them once after the edges start to dry and your cake begins to rise. And then you want to place them in a basket with a warm towel so that you can serve them warm with any toppings that you like or with no toppings. This is a great recipe. It teaches us a lot about our indigenous roots as well as giving us a really healthy alternative to cookies and cakes made with a lot of sugar. I hope you try this recipe at home. And here are our finished Gorditas de la Villa. And these have chocolate, another wonderful invention of Mexico, chocolatl, as it was originally called by the Nahuatl Indians. And I'm going to take a taste. That is fantastic. Their kids are going to love these. Try them at home. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Cooking with the Gomez.